My friends, good day. If you're looking for explanations about what happened last night at Washington Airport, you've come to the right place. The channel. Just a semantic precaution before we continue. The accident happened just a few hours ago, so I will give you a number of elements for understanding and assessment. And then this will be refined in other videos, as is the tradition of the channel. So first of all, a few days ago, I was in Washington. And in Washington, there is a very unique atmosphere. That is to say, it's the capital of the country. And everywhere you look, there's either the White House, it's kind of the heart, a bit of the institutions. But also there are embassies, three-letter agencies. There's the International Monetary Fund, for example, and a lot of international administrations that are present. So what does that look like on the ground? On the ground, it's a city that's constantly full of police sirens, Secret Service vehicles with tinted windows, the American Secret Services, which aren't really secret. Sometimes it's displayed on the vehicle, or sometimes it's even displayed on their uniforms. Intersections are often closed, causing traffic diversions and jams. And also, and especially, that's what will interest us today. Helicopters, there are a lot of helicopters. For example, when Trump was in that famous church where he was lectured, right? Well, the whole year he was there were helicopters circling around the church and flying at low altitude. And honestly, you couldn't even leave a WhatsApp message to your friends. The noise from the turbines was so loud. And I won't hide from you that when they stopped that damn helicopter, I was extremely happy. So, as I was saying, in Washington, we very often have helicopters flying at low altitude, literally flying as if they own the place. Let me show you a video. I didn't make this video for this channel. I made it for my aldosterone aviation channel. It's a channel where I share my travel experiences. And just look, by chance, there's a helicopter flying by. See how it flies low and how it leaves. And it literally disappears into the cityscape. We ask where it disappeared to. That's how it flies, by day and by night, and often at low altitude and often at sea. Aggressively now above. Last night we had an accident between, as I was saying, a commercial airliner. It was the CRJ 700 on a flight, so 2 regular routes for American Airlines. And a helicopter, which was doing a night training. That means it wasn't flying on a special operations mission, but on a training mission. He was either training the pilot or maintaining night flying skills. So what happened? The air traffic controller, however, seeing that this CRJ 700 was approaching runway 01, asked him to change runways and go to 33. That's a change of runway direction, as we say. And actually, it's that simple. As their numbers indicate, 33 and 01, there's about a 40-degree difference. These runways cross each other at roughly 40 degrees. So the plane had to go a little further, extend its path a bit, move a little to the right to reach this new runway. The approach and the circuit were done visually. In reality, it's something that's often done in the United States, and it has implications, operational implications, but it also has legal implications. Let me explain. It's a question of under air traffic control. For example, there's radar control that ensures separation between planes. Whose responsibility is it? That's a classic question on the airline pilot exam. The responsibility lies with the air traffic controller, because airplanes are often in situations where there is no visibility. And so they are directly tied to the instructions of the air traffic controller, who, with his radar, has a better view of the situation. Now, when we ask, as is very often the case, and as it was that night, when we ask a crew to fly the circuit or to make a visual approach, who is responsible for separation? It is the pilot's duty. So this time, the controller disconnects, let's say, from responsibility and delegates that responsibility to the crews. It's up to them to see and be seen, and it's up to them to avoid other planes. Of course, he will stay there and give them, as he did, information about the traffic. That is, do you see the plane that is approaching at your 2 o'clock? Do you see a plane at 11 o'clock, slightly above you? No? How about now? Visual, thanks, goodbye. So he gives instructions to the pilots, but it's up to them to be responsible for their separation. Operationally, what's the difference? The difference is that when air traffic controllers handle instrument flight rule separations for instrument flights, the separations are much larger. These separations take into account the fact that the planes can't see each other and that maximum safety must be ensured. But what if the pilots are flying visually? What is the separation? There, it's left to the pilot's judgment. As long as we don't crash into each other, it's fine. It means that separations in an airport or clearances or visual approach or circuit authorizations are given constantly. The separations are much smaller, they are reduced, and they are the responsibility of the pilots. Does that mean basically we can increase the airport's capacity by doing that? Quite simply, yes, we are working with reduced separation because we are working visually. So, paradoxically, this will create an interesting situation. It is more dangerous to fly near this airport when the weather is good, like it was that night. Yes, imagine everything covered in thick fog, Washington. Can the controller give approach, circling, or visual circuit instructions? No, he can't. The aircraft will remain constantly under air traffic control. He ensures separations and will maintain wide ones, always following regulations. And so, obviously, we will have better safety. Whereas, if we are in a situation like yesterday, where there isn't this meteorological constraint, the controller is perfectly free to say to start broadcasting on the radio, plane after plane. Okay, do you see the runway? The guys are. I spoke to a pilot who's very familiar with this airport. He told me that they were very far away at night. Do you see the airport? Yes, we can see it. Okay, well, you continue visually. So from very far away, they have permission to continue visually. This way of working visually is sometimes a little risky. There have been quite a few incidents in recent years alone. In 2023 near Chicago, there was a crew of a Boeing 737-700. The controller asked them, "Do you see the runway?" Yes, we see the runway. Okay, well, continue as you see. They land. They're surprised because the runway is very short, so they brake hard because they feel like they're going to run off the runway since it's extremely short. Afterwards, they land. And they contact the air traffic controller and tell him, "I feel like we're not at your airport." And he replies, "Did you land?" "Yes, we landed, but there's no one here." Actually, they had landed at a small airport, a small general aviation airfield for private flights. They landed on the wrong runway. And that happens regularly over there. The distance between the airport they were going to and the airport where they landed is only 11 kilometers. So they were off by 11 kilometers while flying visually. At night, things happen very quickly and it goes very fast. An airplane, it's easy to mistake a highway for a runway or one airport for another, leading to landings on the wrong runway or at the wrong airport. So precision, that's what I want to say. Some American air traffic control services leave a lot to be desired. There you go, that's the first point. Second problem. I told you at the beginning of the video that the airport is called Reagan International. You know, Reagan Airport. It's a strange name to give an airport, Reagan. Because President Reagan in 1981, after a brutal decision, I want to say even a savage one, which disrupted United States air traffic control for a long time. And maybe the impact of that decision lasts even to this day. I mentioned an accident on this channel that was directly tied to that decision. What did he do in 1981? Well, the air traffic controllers, 13,000 air traffic controllers, went on strike to demand higher wages and better working conditions. And what did he do? Well, he fired everyone. He fired all the strikers. 11,000 air traffic controllers were fired. So after that, they started accepting just anyone. After that, the standard dropped a lot in the country and there were problems. There was even a very serious accident, a plane that literally landed on another one, causing deaths. So I was saying that this problem is becoming more and more urgent. And all the pilots who fly in the United States have told me that they've noticed a decline in the quality of services. Whether it's ground handling or air services, they've felt this. For example, a friend of mine pilots an Airbus A330. They arrived at Washington Airport a few months ago. And then they're guided by the ground staff who give them instructions to move forward. So here they can't see, they're unable to see. The size of the plane is enormous. The A330neo is a relatively new aircraft. So the guys on the ground weren't really used to it. They positioned the jet bridge in the wrong place. And since they're not used to working with such a large aircraft, they kept giving instructions to the pilots to move forward. Then suddenly, a loud clanging noise, one of the engines hit the jet bridge. I'll make it short for you. The guys on the ground ran away. They didn't want to talk to anyone. They disappeared. They planned to blame the pilots, but luckily the cameras caught it. Proved the pilots were innocent and revealed the ground crew guided the plane to impact, trying to show we weren't present. They took the initiative to park and crashed. It's not our fault. A multi-million-dollar story. The plane was stuck for 3 months. They had to replace the engine. They had to thoroughly inspect the plane to make sure there were no cracks in the wing and all that. So the pilots I'm talking to, those who go to the United States in general, or those who go to Washington in particular, are not very impressed by the quality of service in that place. And in particular, once again, the visual approaches and the visual circlings. Some companies forbid this. Some airlines in Europe, the Middle East, or elsewhere will forbid their pilots from accepting to do visual circuits at night. They allow them to do them during the day when the conditions are perfect, like more than 10 kilometers of visibility and all that. But at night, it's strictly forbidden. So it's something dangerous. According to the sensitivity of many people, of many airlines that have decided their pilots should not engage in this kind of exercise. So what do we have? We have, as I was saying, these pilots who are coming down, they're literally less than a minute from landing. The impact happened at 300 feet, between 300 feet and landing. There's 45 seconds. So they're about to land, they're turning left, and then we have this helicopter that's circling above Washington. To the north of the airport in question, we have the Pentagon, and the Pentagon to its north has a heliport. So it's possible that this helicopter was operating on behalf of the Pentagon or near the Pentagon. And departing from the Pentagon very often requires crossing the runway axis of Ronald Reagan Airport. That's right. This helicopter receives, as we can clearly see on the radar, an instruction from the controller. Do you see the CRJ 700? He asks him, do you see the plane? So this request is completely absurd because quite simply at night, I might show you during the editing a video of the takeoff from Washington just a few days ago at night. And there is darkness and lights, lots of lights. So there are car lights, lights from civilization, all of that. Probably some aircraft lights in there, but try to focus on what the eye really sees. It's a background, it's a black backdrop with millions of lights, some of which could be the navigation lights of a plane. It's not easy to see even during the day. Sometimes when we get instructions from a controller who says, do you see that traffic to your right or at your 3 o'clock? It's often hard to see even in daylight. At night, the helicopter seems to say yes. The helicopter pilot seems to say yes, that he saw the traffic. That doesn't mean anything. Why? Because there are two reasons why a pilot sometimes says, I saw the traffic when maybe he didn't. First reason, it's simply confusion. Since we're in the sky, we're in very busy airspace. If he asks, do you see the CRJ 700? Do you see that flight? He looks and says, I think that's it. Oh, that's it. He sees a plane and thinks that's it. As they say, just as one train can hide another, so can a plane. So he thinks he saw the plane. In reality, the plane will approach him from a completely different angle or azimuth. Well, that's the first point. There's another reason too. The other reason is, this may be delicate to say, but here it is. Sometimes pilots who are about to land when the runway is big and right in front of them like that, then suddenly they're told, even though they were talking to the helicopter here, you know what I mean, but just to give you a real life example, well, the controller says, yes, there's traffic at your 2 o'clock since you saw it already. There's a little problem. It's that if they say, we didn't see the traffic, what does the air traffic controller say? For example, there's traffic at your 2 o'clock. Do you see it? Do you do it like this? If you say, no, I don't see it, you know what he'll say next, right? Really, he's clumsy. So at that moment, what should I do? Throttle up, retract the gear, then he'll give it to you. You'll wait at altitude, make a big loop as instructed, then return. You'll lose 20 to 25 minutes easily to come back and land. You know what I mean? So when you're sure of yourself, well, when you think you're sure of yourself and you really think you have the situation under control and there's nothing there, no plane in your path right now, you might be tempted to say, yeah, it's fine, I'll go visual. Do you see the plane? Where is it now? I'm not sure. Maybe he's talking about it, okay? Do you understand the situation? Sometimes the situation can go in that direction. It's a girl, yes, I saw her. After that, we look for him. There is this problem. So, the aircraft are being approached. There was, on the radar, you can see an alert. You can see a traffic alert, a conflict, a traffic alert on the radar that appears in red. Who says attention? The radar algorithms are detecting that these aircraft are on converging paths, they're on a collision course. That's what will prompt it. The controller, by the way, asks the helicopter, do you see the plane? Okay. Now, regarding the aircraft themselves, there was likely an alert. We'll find out after the investigation and black boxes. There was likely an alert. ICAS stands for the avoidance system. It's 2 planes communicating, 2 aircraft communicating through their transponders. And the plane had a transponder, and so did the helicopter. Sometimes the military can fly incognito without a transponder or anything, so radar doesn't always show them. But that wasn't the case that night. That is, when you look, the radar shows the altitude of the helicopter and all that. So it's an altitude that's received by the helicopter's transponder. So when you say transponder, you mean ICAS. So they probably got an ICAS alert. But be careful, ICAS doesn't give avoidance instructions. When an aircraft is below 1,000 feet, above 1,000 feet, there is a dialogue between the 2 traffic collision avoidance systems, and on one of the aircraft it will say, for example, climb, and on the other it will say descend. But both have communicated, both have discussed with each other, and one said, listen, I'll ask them to climb, you ask them to do the opposite. So there is a very quick conversation between the traffic collision avoidance systems so that the decision can be made. Below 1,000 feet. This kind of instruction is not given. It means there is traffic, but there are no instructions given by the traffic collision avoidance systems. Something else as well in this kind of airport. With visual approaches, sometimes this visual approach means that, as I told you earlier in the video, the separation distances are reduced compared to the LEGO instrument flight rules minimums. But here, we're not using the LEGO minimums, we're flying visually. So we're flying like Lindbergh. Well, the minimums are lower. That means the planes are getting closer to each other than is comfortable. Also, sometimes other runways are used for takeoffs and landings. And this can create situations where there are traffic alerts, but the pilots have to ignore them. That means they're approaching, they know there's such a concentration of planes in that area where they are that traffic collision avoidance system alerts will be unavoidable. It's part of the sound and visuals. There will be some, but that doesn't mean that every time the pilots see them, they're going to aggressively take actions and evasive maneuvers and all that, because otherwise they would do it every time. So you see, this also adds to the danger. So here we've already seen several dangers. It adds to the danger because we start to ignore certain alerts or not give them the importance they deserve simply because these alerts happen all the time. It creates a layer. More problems again. So in the end, what happened? The two aeronauts ended up crashing into each other and they fell into the Potomac, into the river. There you go, killing nearly everyone. I heard about 2 survivors from the plane, but I'm not sure yet if that's verified information. There you go. I'm giving you a little bit of what there is, what's known at this stage. So when we talk about them, that said, a helicopter passes by constantly. I think it belongs to the royal family. I see it go by regularly, someone going to and coming back from the office. So there you have it, my friends. The result of all this is that a tragedy like this can't surprise us today. And why can't it surprise us? Because it's one of the major dangers in air traffic today. Incidents happen often, always a close call. People say, did you see that? We barely missed it. This is crucial for air safety and for safety beyond aviation. I'm telling you now, this channel is watched by people who work in various high-tech sectors, where there's an encounter, where there's an interface between man and machine, with all the risks that can involve. Well, every time we're saying to ourselves, did you see that? That was a close call. Wow. Did you see that? He almost wiped out. Every time we say that, it means the bad thing isn't far off. It means there will soon be deaths. There will soon be something serious. So what you need to do is lower your reaction threshold and start taking the bull by the horns and act seriously. When you start having a repetition of this kind of situation, you say, wow, did you see that? That's when you need to react. You shouldn't wait, because if you don't react to that, the next step. We're going to react when there's a tombstone. The next step will have widows and orphans, and then we'll react. You'll say, oh yes, I'm reacting. The problem is that in our system today, let's be clear, in our system, this kind of attitude is not necessarily rewarded. Why? Are we avoiding a tragedy? He's fine. There was no tragedy. There is. It's just in your mind. We worked hard and avoided tragedy, but why do you think you did? Maybe you didn't avoid anything at all. I mean, okay, today we have a tragedy, we have deaths, we have metal in the Potomac, all that. Yes, okay. There was a tragedy here, you can see it. But the tragedy you avoid, he doesn't see it. See what I mean? That's sneaky. So it doesn't create an incentive. It doesn't create an incentive, as they say in English, for people to take too many shares, right? To avoid things that in the end, after a while, you say to yourself, I'll give you an example. I'll just give you an example of a story. It was at the Disney parks in the United States. The Disney parks in the United States at one point wanted to save money, penny pinching savings. So what did they do? They brought in a famous big consulting firm, a firm that, by the way, had literally managed France during the health crisis and other countries, the United Kingdom as well. The firm's analyses arrive. They review the accounts and activities. What do they find? They notice that every day, every night, hours and hours of work are being spent to check and to control attractions such as roller coasters and other rides. Even though there are never any accidents. So they bring in the head of maintenance. They almost tell him that he's cheating the company. All those hours passed without any accident. So we have a problem with that on the accounting side, especially since we're looking to downsize. So what are they doing? The guy answers them, yes, but you're forgetting. The cause and effect relationship is that if there's no accident, why is there no accident? It's because we're checking every night and we're doing the necessary maintenance every night. That's important. When the park opens in the morning and the public arrives, we have machines that are in optimal condition. That's why there are no accidents. The absurdity of this office. It was like telling pilots they're wasting time on checklists or doing pre-flight checks. Here, don't do pre-flight checks because you've been a pilot for 20 years. Every day you do pre-flight checks before every flight. No accidents have happened, so you should stop. Do you see how absurd that is? By the way, this happened at Disney. They fired staff, reduced maintenance hours, and soon there were deaths. It's simple. These are things that don't forgive. But in terms of, if you will, managing an administration, managing a company, we don't see what we're missing. We don't see what we're able to achieve. That's it. Thank you, my friends, for watching this video. There were a lot of deaths, 64 plus 3, at least 67. We'll see, give or take, 2 or 3 deaths, what I'm telling you. I'll quickly show you my book about the toxic corporate environment, what career coaches don't tell you. You can read this book, but can't unread it. Be careful. We change and become different when we read this book. There are doctors who recommend it. There you go, my friends. Thank you for listening to this video up to this point. If there is any serious news, I'll make another one. Remember, if you watch this in a year or two, this video was made only hours after this bar. See you very soon.